Welcome to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury.
Welcome to Resilience and Resolve with attorney Lance Drury. For nearly 2 decades, Lance has represented clients in tough tax disputes with the IRS and built a practice that continues to grow through trust and word of mouth. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about a reputation and referrals. We'll discuss why they matter more than billboards or slogans and how credibility is still the strongest marketing tool a lawyer can have. Lance, sir, welcome back.
Good to be back, Evan. It's always a great pleasure to be with you.
You know, I love seeing you and talking to you about this tax stuff. Lance, in tax resolution, clients often come under stress. It's a stressful situation. Why is building trust such a critical, part from the very first meeting?
Well, I think you have to start by creating emotional rapport because people want to be heard. People want to be understood. People want to know that you're going to be in their corner. I can give you a little story about this, Evan.
Please do.
I was in my San Antonio office a year ago, September, and this gentleman called me up, wanted to come in. So him and his wife came in. We talked for about 45 minutes or so, and he had a lawyer, but the lawyer basically ghosted him. And I knew the guy. I knew the guy by name. I don't know that I've ever met him personally. And as far as I knew, the guy had a good reputation. And I told him to stay with him, but I said, if you have any problems in the future, that's great. Well, I explained to him about a notice of deficiency, what that means, what U.S. tax court entails. And, he said, I've learned more from you in 45 minutes than I've had this whole time I've had this other lawyer. Well, guess what? A year passes. Now it's August of this year, just a couple months ago. And he calls me back up and he says, I finally had to call the auditor. He was under audit by the IRS.
Wow.
He said that the auditor said the guy just ghosted me. He's not returning my calls. He's not doing anything. So I told him I'm not cheap. Well, he put a big check in the mail, and he's probably our number one paying client because he sent me another huge check. Because here's what's going on, and we may put a billboard down in southern Texas because, he has a ranch, but if you have a business and you lose money year after year on that, the IRS is not going to give you that loss. You can't offset that against other income. They consider that what's called a hobby loss. You're not really in this to make money. It's more like a hobby. You're losing money. And so that's probably going to happen with a lot of those ranchers south of San Antonio.
Wow.
In fact, my attorney in my San Antonio office, right after he got the case, had to go down. This guy is about 2 hours from San Antonio, and they rented a car, and him and the other lawyer down there went down there and spent 2 days because the auditor wanted to take a tour of the farm and all that, which they're allowed to inspect the physical premises. And so, we're spending a lot of time with this guy, but he's calling my lawyer down there. At least he was almost every single day. So now he feels heard. He feels understood. He knows we're in his corner, even though the results of the audit are not going to be favorable to him.
Right.
But he understands that henceforth, he better make some money off that ranch or he's not going to be able to take it for a loss. And I think this is happening all over South Texas now. The IRS is going to be much more proactive in going after those types of situations.
Yeah, well, at least he's in a better situation, though. I know it's going to be tougher, but like with you guys, at least he's in a better spot than he was before.
Yeah, the communication is there. The trust is there. He met me. He got along with me. And Amir, who's my head attorney in my San Antonio office, he works day and night and weekends. I mean, when he was in Los Angeles, I'd come into the office here about 6 at 7 o'clock in the morning. My legal assistants come in. I could call Los Angeles at 7 o'clock in the morning here. That's 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, and Amir would be working.
Amazing.
And he works at night, and he works on the weekends. And so Amir is willing to put in however much time he needs to let the clients know that he's actively working on their case and communicating with them.
Absolutely. But what are the most important things to make sure clients know they can rely on you? What is that? Is it that availability? Is it building that? Is that a good way to build trust?
I think it is. Sometimes you have clients that, they want a $10,000 case for $2,000 and they want to call you every day. But I think, the biggest complaint that the bar gets from clients is lack of communication.
Hmm.
So we want to make sure, even if nothing's going on, that we communicate with our clients once a month. Now, I do have an attorney in Nashville, and this prevents a problem. He'll just tell them, look, the IRS is extremely slow. Nothing's going to happen for months. You're probably not going to hear from me for 2 or 3 months. And as long as you tell them that up front, they know then. But if you don't tell them that, they're going to wonder what's going on if you don't stay in communication with them at least once a month.
Hmm. You've said your practice has grown largely through reputation. How did you earn that trust early on in your career to build what you have now?
Well, I think part of it is reputation. I think radio has been great. I know that's an old school approach to marketing, but it's been very successful for me. We're now reaching into social media. We're doing these podcasts. Uh, but the biggest thing is, as far as reputation, is we send a newsletter. It used to be monthly. Now we send it out every other month to attorneys,
Awesome.
accountants, realtors in all the metropolitan areas that we're in. We're getting geared up to do that in Houston now as well. And here's what's great about it. It's not that expensive if you do it every other month as opposed to once a month. But these attorneys or accountants, if they send somebody to you, and that client gets good results, they keep sending you people. I've had
Mm.
people come to me that had gone to an accountant said, I've sent 10 people to him and everybody's satisfied with the results. And the best thing about that in terms of getting referrals is there's no marketing cost there.
Mm.
There's the cost for the newsletter every other month, but other
Mhm.
than that, there's no real cost there. And so we get multiple referrals from accountants and attorneys, people that I don't even know. They hear me on the radio, they get my newsletter, and so they know that because I'm probably the only local guy in St. Louis that's on the radio. You get the big national firms that come in, but guess what those big national firms do, Evan, on the radio?
What they do?
They come in on January the 1st, and as soon as tax season is over, April 15th, they're gone. They don't advertise on the radio again until tax season.
Oh, that's
We're
wild.
on there. We're on there constantly. We're on there now with the government shut down, even though probably half of the IRS is still working, so we still get calls. We were on there when the government was shut down during COVID. So we've never quit, because the problem is if you quit marketing on the radio, do you know how much time that takes to build that back up to where you were before? So we're never going to get off the radio, but we are going to expand our marketing uh, monies to other areas, which we've already done.
It's smart. It's smart. And speaking about referrals, they just don't come from clients. They come from your professionals. You talked about the newsletter. How do you have relationships with accountants or other lawyers that how have they kind of shaped your practice as well?
Well, it's through this referral, and it only grows as time goes on, Evan. I there's a bunch of accountants now I know, and they're even sending me clients from other states, because that's the beauty of dealing with the IRS. It doesn't matter where you live in the United States. We
Right.
can practice before the IRS because it's all federal law. It's all the same law throughout. So you have a huge market to pick from. And the thing is, most attorneys don't want to have anything to do with the IRS. I'd say less than 1% of attorneys do this. More accountants do it. But the problem is, I tell everybody, uh, there's three rules. If you don't hire me, hire an attorney that does this every single day. Accountants are great with the numbers, but they just dabble in IRS work because 90% of what they do is tax preparation. And I have seen, and all my attorneys have seen, accountants give atrocious advice to their clients when it comes to dealing with the IRS. Everybody thinks this is simple, but it's not. When I was a small town lawyer, I practice 15 hours a year in continuing legal education. Now,
Mhm.
myself and all my attorneys, we spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more just keeping up in this. In fact, in 2 weeks, we have a 3-day webinar with the American Society of Tax Problem Solvers. That's going to be 24 hours alone in staying up with this stuff over a 3-day period. But that's what you have to do if you want to get your clients the best possible result.
Mm. Some firms spend heavily on ads. You talked about doing the radio. You talked about newsletters. But what do you think can't? What do you think advertising can't do that reputation and referrals maybe can do?
Well, the thing is, advertising gets them through the door,
Right.
but it's the results and your commitment that keeps them from keeps them coming back. Because
Mhm.
you can get them in the door, but if you don't work, if you don't do the work, if you get your client terrible results, if you don't communicate with your clients, if you don't have a great office staff that makes them feel at ease when they call in here and takes the initial intake, you're not going to get these people to come back. So the advertising gets them through the door, but your results, your commitment, the results that you get for your client, that's what brings people back, because they hear about you from either one of their friends or somebody that came to me. I got a guy out of Yonkers, New York, and I got him solely on reputation because he met a gentleman that was from Michigan that I represented years ago and said, "You need to call Lance Drury." And so now we're doing all of his tax stuff for him, including his tax preparation. And so that's what reputation can do that the radio can't.
So Lance, for attorneys who feel the pressure to market themselves, what's one way they can start building a reputation without, maybe if they're not, they have the finances, but how can they do it without spending too much money but they want to market themselves in a unique way?
Well, that's a good question because marketing is going to take money. Radio is not cheap. In fact, we're going into Houston, but the cost of 60-second advertising in Houston is uh, pretty high. So we're just going to do 30-second commercials. We've never done that before, but I'll be cutting some commercials next week for all my metropolitan areas, including Houston. Um, but it's kind of hard. I would say a newsletter, or you could do lean letters.
Okay.
It's a matter of public record that when the IRS files a lien against you, it's filed in the Recorder of Deeds office in which you live, and there are companies that do nothing but compile these lien lists and then sell them to practitioners, and then you could send a sequence of letters to people that have a tax lien on their property. So that's one way that's not as expensive as some of the other ways, but I think if you're going to do this right, you know, you can be the best lawyer in the world, but if nobody knows who you are, you're not going to get the business.
Absolutely.
And that's something lawyers have to get over is, they think I'm a professional, I'm good, I don't need to
Yeah.
market myself, but you got to do it. I would not be where I am today if I hadn't gone on the radio, if I hadn't done the newsletters, if I hadn't started doing podcasts like this. You've got to do it in this day and age. And now the social media, because everybody's big on social media. And I'm looking forward to that. We're going to do a dry run today just to see how all the lighting is and everything. And if that's good to go, then we start production next week. And what I'm doing is, Evan, if I don't get 1 million views on social media, my money's refunded by this company. And the
Love it.
average client gets 15.5 million views after 3 months. I'll be going to Miami and Los Angeles soon, Evan, if that happens.
That's good. Listen, I'm trying to take a trip to South Beach anyway. so, a wise person once said, reputation takes a lifetime to build, but only seconds to destroy. How do you protect yours, Lance?
Well, we want to make sure that we go the extra mile for our clientele. Now, obviously, every now and then people are going to be disgruntled. The biggest thing is I tell everybody in the initial consult, 85 to 90% of my clients never pay back the full amount, 10 to 15% never pay a dime. But guess what? I tell them it's all based on your ability to pay. Right. So, there's that 10% that's going to be a full pay, and then they want their money back. Well, they were told there's no guarantees. We cannot ethically guarantee a particular result. We wouldn't want to do that. And so, you get into those situations, but it's just like if you hire a lawyer for a custody battle, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, but the lawyer doesn't refund the money. And neither, if you spend $500,000 on a lawyer for a murder case and you get life in prison, the money's not refunded. So it does happen from time to time, but you tell them up front, it's all based on your ability to pay it back.
So Lance, looking ahead, why do you believe referrals and trust will still matter in the next chapter of your firm?
Because I think it's only going to increase, because the more good work we do, the more clients we represent, the more referrals we're going to get. My name is well established now in St. Louis and Nashville. We're considered the top guns in both of those areas. We get referrals from a very prominent attorney in the Nashville area, and we're going to get San Antonio and Houston there as well. We're just going to keep going, and the more and better work that we do for people, the more referrals we're going to get.
Good stuff, Lance. That's it for me. I'm gonna leave you to save all those Fay Rays from the clutches of King Kong, and I'm gonna let you get back.
That's what we do, Evan. Every single day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury. For more resources or to connect with Lance directly, visit lancedrurylaw.com, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with another lawyer who wants to grow their practice the right way. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.